Welcome, beautiful souls. This is the Spiritual Warrior Coach podcast, where intuition becomes your strength and your energy becomes your power. I'm your host, Barbara Saven, author, energy healer, hypnotherapist, and spiritual life coach, and I'm so grateful that you're here. This podcast is a sacred space where we explore intuition, emotional healing, healthy boundaries, and the practices that help us live with greater peace, clarity, and alignment. So if you ever felt overwhelmed or emotionally drained, this space is here to remind you that the wisdom you seek already lives within you. Because the truth is simple. Protect your energy, trust your intuition, and continue your journey as a spiritual warrior. So join me now as your host. Welcome, my beautiful friends, to the Spiritual Warrior Coach podcast. I'm your host, Barbara Saven, and today my guest is Vandana Nora. She is a certified Reiki master, spiritual teacher, hypno-consultation practitioner, medium, trauma tapper, and Akashic Soul contract reader. And she is also the host of the Adult Child in Recovery podcast and a featured speaker on the New Earth Network Summit, where she supports caregivers and survivors of childhood trauma through one-on-one and group mentoring. Oh, welcome. I am so happy that you're here today.
Thank you so much, Barbara. It's such an honor and a pleasure to be with you and your beautiful listeners. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, my pleasure. And it's so nice to know that you're also from Brooklyn, my hometown.
Yay, Brooklyn.
Good old
Woo.
Brooklyn. And where I actually
Absolutely.
was born, you live. So yeah. It,
Yes, we could have been neighbors if you hadn't have moved.
yeah, that's true. Uh, so let me ask you, because I looked at your website and everything, and in
Thank
what
you.
ways did your childhood and your marriage help shape, who you've now become? Because I know you're a Reiki master, you're a spiritual counselor, and you do incredible things. So what happened there that actually, got you into all this?
Well, Barbara, it's the wounded healer scenario, right? You know, we need healing. We didn't grow up in, I should say myself, I can only speak for myself. I didn't grow up in an idyllic home. It was really chaotic and dysfunctional. And somehow I managed to survive that and also managed to learn how to thrive and how to become my own loving parent. But it took a long, long time. But it did awaken me. It did help me to understand that my childhood, my history, you know, if it's not dealt with and if it's not healed and resolved, all the stress, pain, and trauma, all the anxiety, all the unpredictability of growing up in this type of a household with this type of emotionally available and parenting style that I was exposed to, that all kind of trickles into our adulthood, right? And it
Mhm.
affects all of our relationships, which led me to marry at a very young age somebody who was definitely a representation of my father and, you know, the daddy issues that were never resolved growing up. And it was a very toxic marriage, you know, and after years and years of trying to stick it out, and, you know, it actually served me in a way because I learned that through me attempting to heal him and rescue him, which I don't advise. He had a lot of issues, let's say, um, mostly dependency, substance abuse, and chemical dependency. But I didn't really know anything about that because I was never exposed to that growing up. I was a very sheltered child and teenager. So through all of those experiences, I was able to help myself, to heal myself, and also to realize that you can't really change anyone unless they really want that themselves, unless they're really, really ready to recover from whatever it is um, that was, you know, hurting them. And so I think all of the years of growing up in this type of a household, My mother was um, also had abandonment issues. She had childhood trauma that was unresolved. She never, went to therapy. I mean, no one in that generation really did anyway. It wasn't like, it wasn't like now. So, my brother and I had to kind of deal with that. And it was a lot. It was a lot to deal with. But after I got out of my marriage and I finally got the strength and the courage to divorce him, I was a single mother and it was, very scary. But then I learned a lot about myself, a lot about my gifts, because I really was hiding in those relationships. I really had no identity of my own. I really didn't know who I was. I wasn't allowed to express who I was or even think about what I wanted to do in my life. So I just know that I always was gifted. I was always psychic. I was always sensitive, always an empath, and a caregiver, because I wound up parentifying my own parents in many ways, especially my mom.
Mhm.
Father was more absent, more dismissive, more of the, cold shoulder kind of unavailable, emotionally unavailable parent. My mother was the suffocating one, the one that was like probably trying to overcompensate for my father for his lack of attention and, you know, yeah. So that's what happened. I finally became a Reiki master many, many years after I divorced my husband, and everything is fine. I was the best thing I ever did in my life. But that's when I realized that I can put these gifts that I never was able to use or express to be of service to use. Then after working, I actually worked at the Chopra Center and Spa in Ayurveda for several years. And I was always in a helping profession, but a little bit different than a traditional healer like we are. And I realized like I'm ready now to just be myself and I can't hide anymore. I just have to, my calling was always to help people, to always hold a safe space for people. And eventually I just went to the Edgar Cayce Institute for it in New York City, got a scholarship, found a way to do it, and that's when I launched my healing career. That was many years ago. That was over 20 years ago when I decided to take a leap of faith. I'm probably jumping ahead into your
Oh,
next
no, not at
questions,
all.
but I just decided this is it. I'm ready. I can't fake this, try to squeeze myself into a box, was really limiting myself and really pretending to be much smaller than I ever was. And I knew that I couldn't do the 9 to 5 life anymore. I needed to be my own, boss, which I am to this day. But also, I needed to find a way to support myself and my son, which is what I did. So, yeah, I never looked back.
Some
But
journey,
all of
right?
those experiences, those
Mhm.
difficult experiences in childhood and teenagehood, young adulthood, those all led me to really develop so much resilience, so much courage, and also to never give up the hope that I could, you know, do something worthwhile in my life, and not just kind of settle for less, which is the way I was taught growing up. But my marriage lasted almost 20 years, and I was staying much longer than I needed to. And I realized that, okay, I was living in survival mode and walking on eggshells most of the time because he had a very unpredictable, explosive nature, and I never knew if it was Dr. Jekyll or Mr. Hyde that I was living with when I would put the key in my door and open the door after working all day and coming home, not knowing. And I just couldn't live that way anymore. And I knew that I had to do something. I had to take a risk and take a chance, and that I would somehow make it on my own as a single mom, which I proved myself to be right, and I was able to. And now my son's 34, so all is well. Thank goodness.
Congratulations. It takes a lot of
Thank you.
courage. It takes commitment and perseverance and respecting ourselves to know that this is
Yes.
not what we want. Many times I mean, in my heart, I feel that we suffer for a reason, and it can either break us or make us so much better. And in your case, look what it did. Yeah, it did. It caused a lot of harm, and probably, I'm sure, emotionally, mentally. But you picked yourself up, and you walked out of it, which is so important. And
And I never looked back.
never look back. Why do you think? I know even some of my clients, they're afraid to walk
Mhm.
away, and I always tell them,
Yeah.
plan it out before making that leap, but do it, because nothing will ever change if you stay in that situation.
Right. It's a codependent relationship and it was quite a toxic relationship too. And I think I really found the strength to do it, Barbara, honestly, when I look back because of my son, because I knew that he was going to be hurt and dragged down as well. And it was survival of the fittest. And that's what I knew at that time. But I just needed time, like you said, to plan it out, to get used to the idea. I just had so much fear, and I think fear is what holds most of us back and keep most of us in survival mode, but also in denial mode. So we tell ourselves, no, it's not that bad. Who knows what's out there? It could be worse. What happens? Worst case scenario thinking, which is
Mhm.
very also unhealthy, thinking. It doesn't serve us. It actually keeps us stuck. But I was caught up in that cycle of cognitive dissonance or black and white thinking, this or that. Now, I didn't really have a strong support system, but I did have my mother back then who was encouraging me, um, to do it. And then finally I did it. And she posed a very profound question to me. I was shocked. And that question was, well, let me ask you this. You're afraid to do things alone, but aren't you doing things alone now?
Mhm.
Does he help you with anything? I said, no. Does he support you with anything? No. So then what would be the difference? And I thought, oh my goodness, that makes a lot of sense. And then I started going to a therapist because I realized these lifelong patterns didn't start with my husband, but it led me to him. It started a long time ago in my mother's womb, in utero,
Mhm.
and this is all generational trauma. It's generational childhood trauma that was passed on to me. And it's nobody's fault. There's no room for blame or shame or any of those games. And it definitely, though, put me in a position now as an adult where, I really had to take a good hard look at my life and think like, is my life working? Or am I hitting rock bottom repeatedly? And then I joined some groups, adult child groups in recovery, which I highly recommend. And I started moderating because I already moderate support groups anyway. And I realized I did the 12 steps. I went through the 12 steps. I didn't do all of them, but I did most of them. And I listened to other women in my support circle and I listened to their stories. And that really had such a healing effect because as children, we're taught not to talk about our feelings, not to trust our feelings, not to feel our feelings. And this group actually allowed me to do all of the above and to feel, to just be in a safe space and feel that support around me. And that really was kind of like the beginning of my carving out a healing niche, my own healing practice, which is working with, childhood trauma and being an inner child mentor. And that's what I do. And that's really what I love to do. That's where my passion is because I was able to dig myself out of that hole. And it is a process, it's ongoing. Healing doesn't happen overnight, as you know, but that was really the opening for me. First, educating myself, first coming out of denial and
Yes.
curious, like
Mhm.
what is going on here? Why are my relationships failing? Why do I have challenges working at the same company? That's when I was working for, I had bosses, employers. Why do I have all of these challenges? Why do I still feel like there's something missing and so forth? So that's when I started becoming an investigator and a detective, reading books about emotionally unavailable parenting narcissism and all of those styles of parenting that are very toxic, especially about emotional neglect, which is actually a large part of our population actually has that experience. So emotional neglect can be even, I don't want to say more painful than physical or emotional or psychological abuse, but if you're raised by parents who neglected you and who weren't there for you to support you, that is even more difficult to heal from because it's not what they did, it's what they
You
didn't
didn't
do,
do.
and it's what they weren't able to do because they weren't raised that way themselves. So it's impossible to really give to your children or grandchildren, provide for them in a way, right, that you weren't taught yourself. So I had to do a lot of forgiveness work and Ho'oponopono work as well. Um, and and yeah, come to a sense of peace, but also grieve and allow myself to feel the loss, the deprivation of not having, that perfect or ideal childhood. But not many of us have like the perfect childhood. There's always something that
Mhm.
we didn't receive where our needs weren't met growing up. So I consider myself to be very lucky and blessed that I have the courage and the fortitude to actually dig deeper, and to give myself what I never received. And that's what I teach others, right? How to become their own loving parent.
Which is that now, is your mom still alive?
No, she passed in
Oh,
2011. And
oh,
my
okay.
father passed even before that. But my father and I didn't really have a relationship anyway. That's another whole story, another interview maybe or a conversation. But my mother, I was able to make peace with her. I was able to, that's when I became a Reiki master. So I was able to offer her several sessions when I went to visit her home and she had moved to Florida. Um, and I used to go visit her once or twice a year. And I remember her being so, I remember her shifting her energy so much that it shocked me. And then she just kind of fell asleep in her chair while I was, bending over, kneeling, giving her Reiki. And when she woke up, she said, I've never felt, this is amazing. I've never felt so relaxed in my entire life. And she was already in her late 70s at that point. And I thought, wow, I guess Reiki really works.
Yeah, what does?
And she said that, well, because I always guide people through visualizations and, um, very sort of, relaxing meditations. And she said that this, she felt like she saw herself on a beach walking with her father, and they had just reunited, and that's why she moved to Florida. He invited her there and bought her like a condo, and she was like, yeah, it was so peaceful, and wow, I can't believe it. And she loved the fact that I became a Reiki master. She was just like, always checking in with me. So how's the Reiki? How's the Reiki? I'm like, it's good, it's good. But I also knew at that point, this is like 2007. So we're talking about almost 20 years ago.
Mhm.
I always knew that I needed to use my voice because as children or adult children, right, like the phrase goes, we don't really have a voice. And we're not even in fight or flight most of the time. We're in the freeze state because we can't fight back because we're
Mhm.
too little and defenseless, but we can't run away because we don't have any money. So we just freeze. So that's basically, I realized that I had a lot of frozen emotions and feelings, and I needed to use my voice because I was always a singer. I always loved to sing, but I never did that professionally. And then I thought, well, I can guide people through these inner journeys and I can help people to reduce their stress and anxiety and pain levels, cortisol levels. And I thought, okay, I don't even think it was a conscious decision. I just felt like this is what I'm supposed to do. And this is what I was born for. And I really do feel that everyone has a unique soul purpose. And it's probably not just one thing, it's probably a combination of many different types of areas and directions that we can go in based on our soul gifts or our soul plan. And that's when I started using my voice and facilitating more of the like hypnotic or hypnotherapy types of guided sessions. And I would combine that with Reiki. And then later I learned access consciousness and I became a bars facilitator where I would run people's bars. The bars are 32 points on the head that when you touch them, it releases a lot of electrical charges. So a lot of hyperactivity, a lot of hyperarousal, a lot of nervousness or mental tension. So I started doing that. That's also similar to Reiki, a lot of hands-on positions, but mostly around the head,
The head chakra.
because most of us are stuck in there anyway. And I realized like this felt like perfect for me. So that's basically kind of like what I've been doing all these years and just expanding my toolkit and getting certified in so many different modalities. And now I'm at a place where I feel really pretty complete and where I could really trust myself and my gifts and not have to worry about, taking on too much, and where I get to choose who I want to work with, who I feel is compatible and the right fit. Because not everybody is at the stage of their life where they're able to receive the healing, So I want to only work with people who are committed to their healing process. And that is a big deal, because one and done doesn't exist, as it's a process of
Well, it's a
wholeness.
roller coaster ride. It's good days and bad days. I know even for myself, I've been through so much, and I look back and I'm grateful many a times for any of the suffering that I've been through, because it actually helped me grow stronger and helped me see what it is that I myself needed to heal.
Yes. It's a process of self-reflection, introspection, contemplation. I also became a Buddhist many years ago, so I was a Buddhist practitioner for many years. More recently, with Thich Nhat Hanh's Plum Village, there's a sangha called Rock Blossom. So I used to sit with them online during the pandemic. Now I'm a Sufi practitioner. I feel like you have to find your path. Everyone has a different path, whatever gives you comfort,
Mhm.
peace, and solace, whatever it is that makes you feel safe in your body, but also connected to source. And for me, it's it's my Sufi practice, which I love. And so I feel like there's something for everybody. There definitely is. It's just a question of self-discovery, getting to know yourself and understand like what you need. Because again, as children, we weren't, most of us didn't have our needs met, I think, you know,
We were
and it
always
wasn't
told to be
really,
quiet. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and
Hmm.
most of us felt invisible because it was
Hmm.
safer to. That was a survival response to all of that chaotic, all of the chaotic adult role models in our lives. But that served us once upon a time. It doesn't serve us anymore. It actually hinders us and limits us. So it is a process of turning our lives around and taking our powers back, which
What
is
do you
what
think
I've
what
done.
happens to somebody that wants to do it but doesn't do it? What do you think happens to them on a spiritual level?
They're just going to be repeating the same
Mhm.
suffering over and over again. They say the Buddha says pain is um, inevitable, but suffering is optional.
Mhm.
And so they also say there's like a double-edged sword or a double arrow, like yeah, something like that. And Thich Nhat Hanh said that as well. So it's what happened to you, which is damaging or difficult enough, but it's when you do it to yourself
Mhm.
needlessly because of your background. So you mistreat and abuse or neglect yourself. That's that double-edged sword or the double arrow. So you're doubly suffering, right? And you don't need to.
Mhm.
You just need to make peace with and accept what happened, that it wasn't your fault, right? And that, and take the lessons from it, what you've learned about yourself, about people, about life, and deepen your faith, your trust and faith and your connection, like reconnect to your higher self, to your higher power. We all have a higher power, but we're not taught that. So I think the first step would be to meet people who have walked in your shoes, similar paths. They're called fellow travelers. Find a fellow traveler, somebody who has done the work, the recovery work, somebody who is emotionally sober and can, be there for you as a guide and a role model and an example of, how to inspire you. So being around inspirational people, not negative people or people who are always gloom and doom and complainers, and those kind of people for empaths are really draining. And I had a lot of friends that I had to say goodbye to over the years, very long-term friendships that I just felt terrible when I was around them. And the more my vibration elevated, the higher I got, or the more conscious and aware I became, the more work I would do on myself, the more I couldn't be around those kind of people. And that also takes a lot of strength and courage, you know, because
But
it's not easy
sometimes
to
it,
walk this life alone, or we're
yeah.
never alone, but you know what I
Mhm.
mean. It's not
Well,
easy to say
it,
goodbye to those, long-term friendships like for years. So, but I did. I had to. I felt like I had to for my own mental health and well-being.
mhm. Yeah, I understand that because I've also did the same. And uh yeah, it could be a little lonely, but I rather be lonely than uh have all that negativity and very low
Yes,
vibration around me.
yes,
And so
yes.
there's where we have to make a choice to change. Otherwise, nothing will change. And then we
Exactly.
stay
And because
stuck.
when we
Hmm.
change,
Hmm.
then other people will change the way they are around us, and I've witnessed this myself with my son and I, with our relationship, and he would even say to me after he saw me doing all this inner deep work, you're really different. You've really changed. I was like, wow, thank you. Like you're a lot more peaceful and don't fly off the handle, or you're not as nervous or worried as you usually are. And that was the biggest compliment I could ever get. Like if your own kid tells you that, no matter what age they are,
Hmm.
that's pretty miraculous. So yeah. So yeah,
Well, good for you.
it's
It was a long
welcoming
road, but
in the
you've done it.
new.
Hmm.
Yeah, saying goodbye to the old, welcoming in the new. One door closes, five doors open.
Yep.
And we're in the year of the fire horse, in the Lunar New Year.
Mhm.
And this is all about resilience, courage, strength, speed, and momentum, forward movement. So we have a lot of help from all of these, power animals or allies or angels, whatever you want to call them,
Mhm.
spirit guides, And so the fire horse is also about the fire element. So I feel like we're in a really good year. This is about major transformation. So we have the support, even if we can't physically see them with our eyes, we know they're there, right? So I'm optimistic about that. I do feel like a lot of great things are happening, but it's like you have to kind of believe that this can happen to
It'll
you, that you're
happen.
worthy of this,
Hmm.
or else nothing different or greater will ever find you if you're still holding on to the old programming and the beliefs, the false belief systems, right?
Let me ask you, how do you connect to your spirit team and as a Reiki teacher, how do you teach others how they can access their higher self? Because I know, we
Yeah.
talk about higher self all the time. Some people probably don't even understand what higher selves mean.
The higher self is basically our ancient immortal
Hmm.
soul, our wise, our wisdom that never it's never born and never dies. So it's the highest aspect of us, our most conscious, true self. And how I teach people how to channel is basically to just be still, be present, connect with their heart space, breathe, pay attention to their breath. And I take them on these guided journeys where they meet different aspects of themselves, which are always, reflections, like our angels or our spirit guides are just reflections of us, of the highest expression of who we are. And it's a process of trust. I take people through candle meditations where they can kind of connect and eye gaze at a candle flame. And that is a great way to relax the nervous system as well. I take people through trauma tapping where we can just kind of rewire our nervous system just by kind of performing these types of actions like over and over again to calm our inner children down, right? When we're feeling triggered or something like this, just very like gentle rocking. And all of these, can really tone the vagus nervous system as well. There are lots of different positions around the ears, around the heart space, but it is about touch. But I guess through Reiki also, this is how I found my spirit guides. When I got attuned to Reiki, it was like everything just opened up for me. But it's mostly about helping people, taking people through different types of exercises where they prove to themselves that they can trust their intuition. And I think the reason why we're disconnected is we stop trusting ourselves.
Oh, boy, is that true?
And the reason why we stop trusting ourselves, we maybe never even learned how to trust ourselves because we didn't have healthy role models.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know anything about angels. I wasn't brought up with spirit guides or angels or even God. I was told basically my mother was agnostic. My father he would just go to temple on the high holy days. That's it. So I didn't have, those positive role models who are spiritual or connected to spirit in any way, shape, or form. So I didn't grow up around family who taught me how to trust or how to feel connected with source. So I had to teach it to myself, So that's what I attune my clients to, like just helping them to channel first, like to merge and blend with this part of them that knows everything, the omnipotent part of them, right? And once they can merge and blend, or just imagine if they can't see or hear or feel it, then they're able to really show up and be more present and manage their lives a lot more effectively. So that's a really important step, right? So it's kind of like the hypnotic or hypnotherapy, whatever you want to call it. It's taking them through these relaxation journeys where they learn how to do that, and they prove to themselves over and over that they can feel a divine presence if they allow themselves to and they get out of their own way. And most of us block ourselves. That's why we have these walls and shields up to protect ourselves. But if we can hold a safe space for people so they can finally, like we could become their safe person. Maybe they never had a safe person in their life who showed up consistently, that was always, trustworthy. So if we can show up that way for ourselves, then we can show up that way for our clients. Right? So it's very important to do that. And everyone knows how to channel. Everyone can channel.
We
It's
all
just
have
that
that
we don't
ability.
listen. We're so outside, we're so distracted by the outside world
Yes.
that we forgot what it looks like or feels like, what it is like to take an inner journey, to tap into our inner space where all the solutions, all the guidance, all the messages, the answers are all inside of us in our heart space. It's in our DNA, as you know, right? It's in our cells. And it's, we all have wise and well ancestors. We have healer ancestors who had healer hands, healing hands. So we have to we inherited these gifts. It has to come from somewhere, right? I mean, if you're a healer, we're healers here, right? Having a healing conversation. Well, maybe our ancestors are here with us right now, just like standing behind us and supporting us and cheering us on. We had to get these gifts from somewhere. So we inherit burdens, but also gifts and resources, and we just have to recognize them. And that also has strengthened my connection with my spirit guides, just
Spirit
doing a
guides.
lot of ancestral medicine work. Yeah.
Do you feel that most people have the healing abilities?
Everyone has it in
Everybody?
different
Hmm.
ways. You know,
Hmm.
some are more clairvoyant, some are more clairaudient, some are more clairsentient, some are more claircognizant. You know, we all have the six senses. Some are stronger than others. And I always tell people, because a lot of people, they just want to open up their Ajna chakra. I'm
Hmm.
like, why? Do you know why? They're like, I don't know. I just feel like my life would be better, but maybe it's not, doesn't need to be that open because
Hmm.
maybe you're not meant to see everything because that would kind of blow out our circuitry. It would blow our minds. It might be too much information
Much
for us to
sense.
process.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we have to take it slowly. But yeah, everyone has that ability, you know. And I when I teach Reiki, like I'm teaching an Egyptian Reiki class this weekend, actually. It is not about only the healing hands, about transmitting Reiki in person or at a distance with through our hands, through the palms of our hands, but it's also through our eyes, through eye gazing. It's called Gyoshiho in Japanese Reiki, Usui Reiki, and I learned that many, many years ago. And also through our heart space. Like
Hmm.
if we're just standing over a client and we're just holding our hands, we can be, you know, in another building and they're going to still receive it.
Hmm.
And sometimes the further we step back away from the client, they feel it more. Sometimes when we're too close, it's uncomfortable for them and they can't feel it as well.
Hmm.
But yeah, there are different ways to send Reiki to ourselves and others, and to animals and pets. I also teach animal Reiki as well. And yeah, it's fascinating. It's mystical. And, but again, I kind of know that it's in my bloodline. My grandfather
Hmm.
definitely was able to heal himself. Um, and I just didn't understand it when I was a teenager. I thought
Hmm.
it was cool, but now I really think it's cool, you know. But I know that I developed these gifts, I inherited it. He passed all of these gifts on, and I'd love to know more about my ancestors. It's kind of hard with ancestry DNA when you don't have a lot of living relatives left.
Hmm.
But again, our gifts had to start with someone in a previous generation. And whatever is happening, whatever problems people are dealing with, struggles or trauma, it didn't start with you, doesn't belong to you,
Hmm.
but it can end with you. And I always teach people that
Exactly.
everyone has the ability to become a cycle breaker for their family, for um, those vows and contracts that our ancestors were forced to take um, because they didn't have a choice, but we do. We're so lucky. We're so blessed. We have so
We're
many
very blessed.
um, resources and avenues of opportunities that we can knock on, that we can take advantage of. So, so again, the thing is, if you're alone, where you don't have, maybe you're not alone, but you know, your partner or whoever it is that is in your, you know, primary family, they're, they think that healing is woo woo, or maybe they're religious, you know, you have a lot of religious programming, um, you know, and they're not encouraging you, it definitely makes it harder.
Hmm.
I mean, I wasn't encouraged at all from anybody in my family. It was just me because my old life wasn't working. And I just had the calling, you know, the angels were
Do it.
calling,
Uh-huh.
my soul was calling, do it, do it, do it. Take a leap of faith because what's your alternative? What's going to
Yeah.
happen to you
Stay
5 years,
suffer.
10
Hmm.
years, 20
Hmm.
years from now? What would your life look like and feel like? And then when I thought about it, I got terrified,
Yeah.
you know, and
Uh-huh.
I thought, oh, no, 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 I need to do something different. Even if it's one small action step, even if it's sending an email, you know, or whatever it is, or visiting a healing center, you know, it's going to look different for everyone. Like whatever your dreams are, just do it. Don't
Just do it.
wait,
Yeah.
especially
So all
with
we
what's
have is
happening
now.
on our planet right now more
Uh-huh.
than ever. I think our gifts and we need to like make ourselves available and be of service and share our unique gifts, because everybody's gifts will look different, will help the planet in different ways.
This planet definitely needs help right now.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
A lot
Oh,
of help.
yes,
Yeah.
a lot.
And the beautiful thing is that now it's all coming out, healing and hypnotherapy and spiritual coaching. Whereas in my days, when I grew up in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, it was not, it was woo woo, like you said. You were looked
It was,
at it being a witch, and no one
oh,
was
I've
there to
been called
help
a
you.
witch.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. People still call me that. So,
My
and
ex-husband, I don't know how he knew. It's like I'm not a practicing Wicca or,
uh-huh.
like pagan or anything like that,
Hmm.
though I know people who were, and they were the coolest, most magical people I've ever met, the most empowered and confident and healthy people I've ever met.
Hmm.
But, you can use the power of the universe either way. You
Hmm.
could use it to help, or you could use it to hurt or to harm, because this is just an energy, right? So we
It
want to
sure
use
is.
it always for the highest and greatest good for all beings. And yeah, it was not approved. It was more like taboo. But I was always into candles and astrology
Hmm.
and self-improvement. I mean, since the time I was a teenager, I was always very open. And I think you have to be very
To
open
open.
to be in this healing profession. But it
Mhm.
is an art, it is a healing art, and it's an ancient natural healing art. Been around for thousands and thousands of years, hands-on healing. So
Mhm.
it's not like it's actually the opposite of taboo and woo-woo, and I think that people have been told a lot of lies about what's real and what's not real. There's been a lot of misinformation to hold us back.
Mhm.
So we can't be in our power, to
Well, the world,
disconnect us from our power, to divide and conquer us, etc.
the
Right?
world would be such a better place if we all tapped
Yes.
into it and showed more love and light and healing to everyone instead of all this anger and frustration.
And
Um,
divisiveness.
right.
Yes.
It
Yes.
amazes me how
Well,
people
it
hang on
all
to that. Hmm.
it all stems from fear.
Hmm.
And that's what is creating the divisiveness and the sides, the polarity
Hmm.
consciousness. But if we could break through that fear block, the other side of it is love. And because there's only fear or love, those are the only two things. So if we can move away from fear and move closer to love, starting with loving ourselves,
Hmm.
accepting ourselves, caring for ourselves, so making self-care our number one healing priority. Yes. So more and more of us have to come out and speak to the masses about this, to the hearts of humanity, because I think everyone really in their hearts wants the same thing. We all
Hmm.
want to have a good life. We all want to do better. We all want freedom. We all want to have health care, free health care, and take care of our family and our children and have them have the best education. I think all of us have those needs. So, this is all man-made, manufactured.
Yes, an illusion.
It's an
Uh-huh.
illusion, and
Hmm.
it creates a lot of confusion
Hmm.
and disconnection. Yeah, and distraction.
Distraction.
So
Yeah, a
I
lot of
want to,
distraction.
I mean, my greatest wish is to help people to see through those veils of illusion, like you said,
Oh,
the Maya.
yes, with the
And
help of God and everybody else here. Yeah, so important that we have to,
exactly.
we need to send love and light and healing to Mother Earth, to everybody that's in here, that hopefully one day they'll see that this world can definitely, without a doubt, be such a loving, caring place to live.
Yes. And if you can make it here, like Frank Sinatra says, you can
Yes,
make
you
it
can make it
anywhere.
anywhere. Uh-huh. Yep, good old Frank Sinatra. New York, New York.
Well, not right, but
Not just
not
New
just New
York.
York. I mean, I
Yeah.
think globally we
Uh-huh.
can just,
Yeah.
I like to apply it as a joke. It's
Uh-huh.
kind of funny, but yeah. It's true. If you can make it here, you can make it
Take it
anywhere.
anywhere.
Because
Exactly.
this is the densest dimension in the physical realms. So
Hmm.
this is where we have a chance, an opportunity to learn or to remember what we never learned,
Right.
and to access our highest wisdom and our self-mastery. And that's what I always want to relay that message to everyone whose lives I have the privilege of touching. So, yeah.
Well, guys, I know we're probably going to have another conversation about your father one day. So
Okay, we'll save that for
that
next time. I'm
yes.
happy to talk about that
Hmm.
man, that spirit, that soul, I should
Yeah.
say. Because we always want to give, souls, they can change on the
Yes.
other side, right?
Mhm.
And so I feel like he has done a lot of healing work in his own spiritual evolution. And whether he incarnates or not, I don't know, but I do know that. Um, it was meant to be,
Mhm.
and that um, hopefully next time around it'll be better.
It'll be
Huh.
better for him.
But yeah, yeah, definitely. We'll talk about him next time. Thank you. Yeah,
So where
awesome.
can my listeners get a hold of you?
They can get a hold of me on my website, which is Vandana, Vandana, VandanaLightHealing.com.
Okay.
So
Are you on?
VandanaLightHealing.com. Vandana is my spiritual name that was given to me by an Indian saint, a hugging saint, she calls herself. Her name is Amma, and she's from Bangalore, India. And I used to receive transmissions from her every year in the form of a hug. And then she gave me a mantra, and then she gave me my name. So it's like a devotional, very holy name, Vandana. But this is the name I use for my healing practice, and I do feel like Vandana because all my clients call me Vandana. So, but that's the name of my website, also on YouTube as well. I have a channel, Vandana Light Healing, and then you can find my podcast there, Adult Children in Recovery, moving away from insanity to serenity. And it is possible. What else is possible, right? So,
Everything
so
is
thank you for
possible.
asking, and I look forward to staying in touch. And definitely thank you for having me on the show.
Oh, thank you so much for just being here and for sharing your heart with us, your story, um, and of course your beautiful healing work with all of us today. And your words will stay with so many people who are walking their own recovery and their healing journeys. And to of course all my beautiful listeners, if today's conversation touched something tender or opened a new door inside of you, just please be gentle with yourself. Healing is not a race, it is a relationship that you build with yourself, one loving step at a time. So please, if you enjoyed this episode, please remember to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who might need a little extra support today. So until next time, this is Barbara wishing you a beautiful week filled with love and with light. Love, Barbara.